You ever get that feeling that you're just moving through the world without the rulebook? You know, like there are these hidden instructions for how everything really works, and you just never got a copy? Well, today, we're going to try and find it. We're diving into the invisible architecture that runs our lives.
So let's just imagine for a second, if you could actually download a user manual for our world, what would be in it? Would it be a bunch of slick, simple infographics? Or would it be something a lot more dense, a lot more complicated? Well, we actually stumbled upon something that looks a lot like a few pages ripped right out of that manual. It's a personal archive, a real mix of stuff. You've got these super technical standards, scribbled college notes, and the kind of cold, hard text you only see in official emails. It's basically one person's journey trying to figure out the system. Okay, so to even begin reading this thing, you first have to learn the language. And I'm not talking about English or Spanish, I'm talking about the language of systems, of rules, of technology.
It really all starts with this one core concept, the standard. This military document we found in the archive defines it as something that establishes uniform criteria. But what does that actually mean? Well, it's the reason a bolt made in Germany fits a nut made in Japan. It's the absolute bedrock of our entire technical world.
But of course, nobody learns this stuff just by reading a perfectly printed manual. Learning is messy. It's all handwritten notes in the margins. It's formulas like V equals E minus IR scrawled out to solve some real, tangible problem. This is where that clean, theoretical world of standards crashes right into the chaotic reality of just trying to make something work. And the curriculum you need to really get this world, it is massive. You're not just learning one thing. You're studying electrical engineering, IT, civil engineering, but then, check this out, also policing and paralegal studies. And that right there is the key. This user manual isn't just for machines, it's for us. It's a guide on how we organize and, control society itself.
Okay, so let's move from all that theory to one of the most critical systems in our manual, the electrical grid. You know, that invisible force that powers pretty much everything we do.
Now, at a glance, the power grid seems simple enough, right? Power comes from a source, it gets sent through the grid, and it flows to our homes and our businesses. But do not let this clean little diagram fool you. Underneath this apparent simplicity is a mind-bogglingly complex, second-by-second balancing act.
And this is the visible part of that system. These towers are the skeleton, the physical backbone carrying enormous amounts of energy across hundreds, even thousands of miles. This is infrastructure on a truly massive scale.
Now, in the Johannesburg context of our archive, the system is run by some very specific players. Eskom, which is the national utility, and the local city power. These aren't just names on a bill. They represent a century of development and engineering designed to keep the lights on. Or, as we're about to see, to try to.
Because that system, well, it's fragile. It started growing nearly 100 years ago. But by 2019, the strain became too much, and it led to these rolling blackouts they call load shedding. By 2023, the situation was absolutely critical. I mean, can you imagine power cuts for half the day, every single day? And the scary part is, the demand is only projected to keep growing.
So, the whole game is this constant balancing act. You've got power being generated, and you've got people using it. See the graph? During peak hours, that demand spikes. That's the sharp red line. That's when stored energy, the green bit, has to be pumped back into the grid to keep up. When there just isn't enough supply to meet that peak demand, the whole system starts to fail. And that's when they have to shed the load, which is a nice way of saying they turn your power off.
Now, that idea of managing a complex system with incredibly precise rules, that's not just for the power grid. As we dig deeper into this manual, we find that there are standards for, well, pretty much everything.
And this slide just illustrates the point perfectly. Look at this. On the left, a military standard for engineering drawings. A title must be as brief and simple as possible. Okay, now on the right, a guide for policing protests. Officers have to give people a chance to heed the warnings and exit. Two completely different worlds, engineering and social control, both run by meticulous, documented rules. Let's get even more specific. Every single component in a complex machine needs a unique identifier. It's called a PIN, or part identifying number. It's basically a social security number for a screw or a microchip. This is the insane level of detail it takes to make our world work.
And this standardization doesn't just apply to objects, it applies to people too. I mean, the use of zip ties in policing isn't just random, it's a specific protocol. They're chosen for very specific reasons: cost, weight, and their use is governed by policy, right down to making sure arrestees get access to facilities. It's a process, a protocol, a standard.
And the depth of this stuff is it's honestly mind-boggling. Inside this archive, we're finding military-grade specifications for everything. Not just batteries, but non-rechargeable batteries. Not just wire, but a very specific kind of polyamide insulated wire. There are official rules for a metal treatment process called shot peening, for titanium sheets, even for the tiny little removable tips on fiber optic cables. Literally every single piece has its own incredibly detailed rulebook. So, if our world is built on this dense, tangled web of standards and systems, what's it actually like for a single person trying to find their way through it all? What does it feel like trying to navigate this maze?
Well, a lot of the time it feels just like this. A cold, formal email from some big authority, in this case, the South African Qualifications Authority, just flat out telling you that you failed to meet the requirements. It's the system saying no, because you didn't tick the right box somewhere.
And you know what's even worse than the system saying no? The system not even hearing you at all. An email just bouncing back. Recipient address rejected. It's like shouting into a black hole. You followed the rules only to find out the door you were told to knock on doesn't even exist anymore.
But at the same time, the scale of this world is almost impossible to wrap your head around. Here's just one single invoice from the archive for over 2.8 billion rand. It's just a staggering amount of money, representing this massive flow of materials and energy inside the very systems that we're struggling to navigate.
And now let's contrast that giant number with this, the official definition of a part. It's the smallest possible thing, an item you can't even take apart without breaking it. So you have to somehow operate in a world that thinks in terms of billions of dollars and in terms of a single indivisible screw.
So in the end, the journey that's documented in this archive meant dealing with this entire universe of acronyms and institutions. Colleges, qualification authorities, government departments, power companies, police services, training boards. Each one is its own little kingdom with its own language and its own set of non-negotiable rules.
Which leaves us with a final and I think pretty crucial question. In a world that runs on all these complex, often hidden standards and systems, who actually gets to write the manual? Who decides the rules? And how does anyone else even learn to become an architect of their own path through it all?